calls for an inquiry into missing and murdered women heat up, and bad behavior on board planes soars to new heights. This is Primetime This Week, our News of the Week panel, and we have tonight Stuart Thompson, blogger with the Edmonton Journal, Dan Tenser, co-host of Tenser and Gross on 6:30 CHED in Edmonton, and tonight we have in Calgary freelance journalist Catherine Ford. Welcome back, you three. Nice to have you here.
Hi, Shauna.
Good to be here.
Hi, Shauna.
All right, first up, PC leadership candidate Thomas Lukaszuk's huge cell phone bill was all over the news this week. He racked up a $20,000 data bill from dealing with a work issue over the phone during his personally funded holiday trip to Poland a couple years ago. This is how Lukaszuk explains it.
Received a call, I believe it was initially in Poland, from a very distraught, disturbed, panicked, a cabinet minister. Now, put it in time perspective. This was not long after an election. The cabinet minister was a rookie. I was a deputy premier. And the phone call was of the essence, I'm in trouble, something to do with violence, police are coming, what do I do?
Catherine, we'll start with you on this. Does the fact that he was talking to a minister in distress change anything?
Only very slightly. I often wonder, are there no fax machines left? Was there no one else in Edmonton he could have called and said, please take care of this because I happen to be in Poland at the moment? I don't think there's any excuse for it, but I will say one thing that's tangential to this. If we keep complaining that every single cent spent by the government is misspent, how do we expect the government to work?
I think a lot of people have talked about that definitely this week. Stuart, of course, there's a lot of talk about, well, who leaked this to the Edmonton Sun, who started all this? How significant is that information?
Yeah, well, I really think there are two stories here, and I agree with what Catherine said. It's kind of dopey of Lukaszuk to have done this. I think we have gotten to a point where any amount of money the government spends, we're ready to be outraged about. But, I mean, that's one story, and you can think of it what you will. But the second story is, it would seem like the odds are, I think, someone in the party leaked this about Lukaszuk, and now we're at the point where these guys are throwing haymakers at a guy who nobody thought mattered in this leadership race. And they're throwing haymakers that are like Wile E. Coyote haymakers, where they're coming back and punching themselves in the face. So this is going to affect the party, I think, just as much as it affects Lukaszuk. And I think, you know, 3 years ago, you wouldn't have seen this happening in this party. There's something really wrong there, and I don't think it's going to go away once the race is over.
Dan, is this politically damning for him? There's a week away to the vote.
Yeah, I mean, the tough thing for Thomas, obviously, is that he's come into this and positioned himself as the everyman. And what was particularly disappointing about this is his lack of forthrightness at the beginning of the story. His story changed a little bit over the first couple of days of it. And when he first sat down and tried to explain it, including on our radio show, what came out the next day was sort of very different than what he had sat down and explained in the first place. So for a guy that's saying, you know, I'm not about the rhetoric, I'm not about the games, I'm not about the politics, this certainly would show a little bit of a different light. To the point about spending the money, I think there probably is an extreme where we can over-criticize the government for the spending. The issue that I continue to have, though, is on the very basic fundamental things, like a $20,000 cell phone bill, a roaming plan, a data plan, that we all know when we travel, that we take care of ourselves. It's simple. The problem is if the government is not demonstrating an ability to do the simple, how can we give them credit to adequately handle the complex? So I get that there's going to be spending, but when it's egregious like this and could have so easily been avoided, again, it just to me eliminates their credibility to do the right thing on much larger amounts of money.
The other thing too is Lukaszuk said originally this was government business, and it would take a real stretch. You have to think either that was untrue, or that these guys think that everything they do for their party is government business, and I think that is a real problem.
Well, and to Catherine's point before, it's, I mean, if the cabinet minister in question here, if I'm in distress and the police are coming and I'm not calling the guy in Poland. You know, like you know, call somebody else closer to home. The whole situation seems, I don't know, it's just more dysfunction, I guess.
Catherine, you were chuckling there a minute ago. I know you have more to say.
Yeah.
Well, it's what?
Well, I mean, $20,000, for God's sakes, what were people thinking? Anybody who doesn't actually know how much it costs to use a cell phone in Europe, how can we trust them with our government? And this you know, he's not the only minister, by the way, if we remember correctly, that's been caught by roaming charges, because somehow or other, someone in their staff didn't say, oh, pardon me, Minister, did you arrange with Rogers or TELUS or whoever has your plan to buy some time?
We did hear apologies before, absolutely. Okay, time to move on for this next up.